Good morning. 38 degrees outside in March in Texas, so I am inside for devotion. And I had a great time in the Word this morning and want to share just an insight with you. But first of all, this is one of today and tomorrow are a couple of the funnest or most fun days of my life because my wife and I are 2 days apart and today is her birthday. So if you know my wife, Mary Patterson, and know how to reach her, text her happy birthday. She is 60 today and I'm 59. So I get to tease her all day long that she lives in a different decade. If you know anything about her, she looks 10 years younger than me, but it's still fun to tease her because she's 2 days older. But today, in my devotions, getting ready for a pastor's study club for our circuit of about 10 pastors. I was assigned to go through a chapter in a book by Paul David Tripp on leadership, and my chapter was about spiritual warfare. But that led me to a passage that he mentioned, and that's in Luke chapter 17. And so I've been meditating and thinking about this more. And it's Jesus making sure that we as Christians don't have a mentality of entitlement. We've been given free grace, the gift of life. He created us. The gift of life that He created us. The gift of salvation that He saved us, and we are completely 100% a member of His family forever. But that does not entitle us then to demand and not serve. It actually is supposed to empower us, knowing that we have all that we need in Christ, to empower us to serve. And so oftentimes it can make us have a sense of entitlement, or our sinful nature takes advantage of us in our circumstances. So we're in a spiritual warfare to keep our attitude right. In fact, that's the attitude in our head, and the thoughts in our head and the attitude of our heart are huge every day for every Christian all the time until we pass to glory. And that's the thing, is that sometimes we forget and we think that we've hit a season where we can be entitled. And it always gets us into spiritual trouble and relational trouble with people. So this is what Jesus says, Luke 17. Suppose one of you has a servant plowing or looking after the sheep. Would he say to the servant when he comes in from the field, "Come along now and sit down to eat"? If you had a servant that had been working in the field in that relationship, in that ancient relationship, and you were giving them all of their living and they were working for you as a servant, would you say, after he'd worked in the field, "Come sit down and eat"? No, Jesus says, would he not rather say to his servant, "Now that you're done in the field, prepare my supper, get yourself ready and wait on me while I eat and drink. After that, you may eat and drink after I've eaten and drink"? Would he thank the servant because he did what he was told to do? So you also, when you have done everything that you were told to do, you should say, "We are unworthy servants. We have only done our duty." I'm remembering when I was in 5th grade, standing in line to leave the 5th grade classroom to go out to recess. I was bragging, trying to get words of affirmation from my teacher. So I was bragging about getting my homework done. And I remember she shocked me. I was looking for some kind of like tender praise to build up my little ego. And she said, "Donald, you don't get praise for doing that which you're supposed to do." And I think that's a forgotten thought that Jesus brings to the surface. It's this passage, there's 4 gospels and many of the words of Jesus are repeated. But this passage is only found here in Luke 17, 7-10. And I think it's often a forgotten principle, the sense of duty. We have just done our duty. We by grace we are created and saved, but our duty is to live a life of faithfulness and joy and love and service until the day that we take our last breath. Even serving the people when we're bedridden, serving the people with encouraging words and witnessing and encouraging from our sickbed until the day we die. We never stop serving. In a culture like America, where luxury and travel and pleasure seem to be an idol that we all are taught to chase, it's very easy to lose your head and have a sense of entitlement. And now that I've reached almost 60, and my birthday's only 2 days away, now that I've reached almost 60, I have a lot of people that ask me, maybe once every week, I get asked by somebody different, when are you planning to retire? And at first, when it first started happening, I thought people were trying to tell me something like, maybe you're starting to need to step aside and make room for the rest of us. And I would have guessed that maybe there's one or two that are thinking that. But most of the time, they're recognizing that season in life and that that's a thing that's on your mind. And if they're close to that same age, they think about it too. And they're just connecting. It gets you to thinking, what does that mean to retire? I know most of you that listen to me are retired, but not all of you. What does that mean to retire? Retirement does not mean to quit. It means to change the way that you serve. But with a servant's mind and heart, you're always serving. But you can't maybe hit the grind of a full-time job for all of your years, but you can continue to serve. In fact, retirement from a job actually frees a person up to serve in God's kingdom work even more. And so, if you hear a noise in the background, that is my wife talking to her granddaughter on the phone, and she's going back and forth with FaceTime on Mimi's birthday. So that's what's going on back there. But anyway, when you live in retirement as a servant, that's when you really get to live. And so you don't want to, if you're working hard and you're nearing retirement, you don't want to look at it as, finally I get to start serving myself. You want to say, finally I get to be freed up to serve God and my family and my friends and my church in a different way. And I will do it. And you'll find joy in throwing yourself into service and getting things done that people with a full-time job don't have the privilege of getting to see those things get done for the Lord. And so this is what Jesus meant. He said, if you had a slave, servant, and he was done in the field, he's on duty until everything is taken care of, even the meal, and then you would say, sit down and eat. Now, heaven is a beautiful place of complete and final rest and pleasure in pure holiness. It's going to be pure pleasure and pure holiness. But until we get there, we're in the life of service. We're the church militant, and we don't want to get an attitude of entitlement. And you know what will happen when we keep that attitude in our heart and our mind of service to the one who gave his life for us? We will really live. I know that when you hear a devotion like this, it brings it's a kind of a gospel imperative or gospel law. I know it brings a certain amount of guilt, and it's okay because the sinful nature needs to be dealt with, and guilt is part of that. But remember that Jesus said at the end of his life, it is finished. And that means he never stopped serving, not 1 second, and he finished everything the Lord, the Father, had given him to do. And you and I will never be able to say that, and that's why he came. This whole devotion about having a servant's heart and mentality is not so you could achieve a certain amount of peace, of righteousness of your own. We'll never have that by our efforts. That righteousness comes from Christ, who finished his life and fulfilled all of God's will for all humanity for us. And we depend on that, and that gives us peace. But this gives us direction and purpose for everyday life, that we would have a mentality of a servant's heart instead of a mentality of entitlement. But it's never to be what we look for to get our righteousness. And if we did, we'd start to get despairing or depressed or pharisaical and judgmental, either one. So where is it in the Bible? You want to look at Luke chapter 17, 7-10. Meditate on it. You'll be better for it. The kingdom will be better for it. More people will be blessed as you stay in service. And you'll be blessed in your heart as you learn to live the full life. Jesus will be happy too.